If you were a seagull flying over Portsmouth on a hot summer day in August 1874, you would look down and see chaos. You fly past catapulting rocks, flying shards of glass, and fists being raised to the sky. You are watching the Battle of Southsea. On today's tour through Portsmouth's past, we will be exploring the story of when a community banded together to fight for their right to enjoy their home. Coming up, we will be talking to Simon Berry and Jackson Batchelor from the Battle of Southsea project as they take us back through the history of what led to this fiery dispute.
To mark the 150th anniversary in 2024, the Battle of Southsea Historical Society worked with the Heritage Lottery Fund and the City Council to install a series of monuments to the battle on Southsea Common.
Fear of escalation into full-blown revolution was widely discussed by the upper and middle classes, only being 4 years after the Paris Commune, with some wealthy locals preparing yachts to escape what they called the communistic element.
We will also speak with Terence Carvalho, Portsmouth ambassador, who will share local insights and why the story still matters today.
It's Southsea Common, but it's the people's common.
Let's begin. Southsea today is a beloved place. The sea stretches out to the Isle of Wight and the wind dances across the common, open, wide and uninterrupted. People come here every day. They sit, they gather, they have picnics, play sports and just let the world go by.
In my opinion, the relationship between the community and Southsea Common is really, really strong. It's more than just an open space. It's somewhere where people grow up. It's somewhere where we visit events and festivals, to everyday walks, to go and grab a coffee, to go into the park, to playing at the fun fair.
It feels natural, obvious even. This space is public because it's meant to be, right? These simple freedoms, what we now see as trivial liberties, can only be enjoyed by us today because of the heat and anger of a community whose enjoyment of the common was not promised. So they fought for it. Let's rewind. 1 August in 1874, a familiar sight is occurring. As the sun shines across Southsea and crowds flock to the coast like gulls to chips, the calm, open common is beginning to fill. Thousands of people are arriving. They are not here to relax. They are not here to enjoy the weather. They are here to fight, to claim back their rights. So how did we get here? Southsea sits at the far bottom of Portsmouth. Now, Victorian Portsmouth is a busy place. In the 19th century alone, it has undergone rapid change, unprecedented in the island's history. New transport links now connect the various suburbs that would someday make a city. Civic structures are sprouting from the earth, and employment at the dockyard and Royal Navy is booming. Down in Southsea, a grand new pier has recently opened in the mid-century. It's a spectacle, the embodiment of Victorian coastal leisure.
The common was used for all manner of leisure activities, but perhaps most popular was cricket. Numerous games could be seen being played on a Saturday. The first Australian tourists, an Aboriginal team, had played their opening match on the common, and there was even a cricketer's pub.
Also in this area is the Southsea Assembly Rooms, as well as public baths and a grand promenade that stretches along the coast, striking a dividing line between the shingle shores of the Solent and the open grassland of the common. Everyone, in theory, has access to enjoy this area. No fences, no barriers, a rare thing in Victorian England. But a certain crowd, armed with suits and ties, fine dresses and ornate umbrellas, has begun to see it as a fine place for them to settle. Southsea is now a playground for the aristocracy. Just beyond the Italian-style villas, the elegant assembly rooms and the striking seafront promenades is the rest of Portsmouth. A working city, industrial, crowded, political, radical. This does not always sit comfortably with Southsea's latest visitors, who have travelled from inland towns and cities, refusing to look out the window as they pass the soot-covered factories and mills.
Southsea had been developed over the previous decades as a middle-class seaside resort, attracting mostly wealthy transient renters, at odds with their neighbours in Portsmouth, where conditions, although improving, were still dire.
A divide is growing on the island. On one side, the carriage folk, visitors, investors, developers, people with money and influence. On the other, working people, artisans, labourers, dockers, people with little formal power but strong collective presence. Two sides of Victorian society in one shared space. But for some, Southsea is a resort, a day out, and a bit of fun. For others, it is their home, their lives. When the working folk of Portsmouth try to use Southsea as a refuge from the conditions elsewhere across the island, the friction grows ever deeper.
The lack of fresh water in Portsmouth had led to a long tradition of nude bathing by working men on the beach. Clarence Pier, which had opened in 1860, had added a glass-fronted tea rooms directly overlooking the same beach. This led to inevitable tensions.
In May 1874, something changes. The Southsea Esplanade Pier Company, wealthy, connected, powerful, makes a decision that would spark revolution. A barrier is erected, a physical obstruction, a few square yards of land, a strip just off from the pier, small, almost trivial, but blocking something vital, something the community holds dear. Access. Access for people who grew up in Portsmouth, who work in Portsmouth, who have families in Portsmouth, a path people have always used. And suddenly, now, they cannot.
In my opinion, access to Southsea Common is so important because it's one of the few large open spaces within the city where anyone can go, no matter their background. It's completely free, it's accessible, and it gives people that connection to the outdoors. And the seafront is such a big part of our life in Portsmouth.
Historian John Field tells us the pier company's intentions. The main motive of the enclosures was to prohibit working people from enjoying access to part of Southsea Beach and to increase their profits.
The pier owners had a plan to prevent what they described as the promiscuous mingling of the classes. They would gentrify the common, enclosing it from the poorer inhabitants and renaming it Clarence Park.
At first, due process is followed, and the community looks to the law. The town council objects to the barrier. They begin to prepare formal action, but before any legal process can unfold, something else happens. History sets in motion. A crowd gathers at the common. Thousands of men and women, labourers, shopkeepers, families, working people, not chaotic nor random, organised and focused, with a clear goal: to band together and to stand up to the exclusion from where they believed they had the right to simply enjoy. A makeshift platform is quickly assembled and a voice emerges. Meet Barney Miller, a radical local councillor, renowned across the island and a thorn in the side of Southsea's seaside leisure institutions. In 1861, he vocally opposed the construction of Clarence Pier, but was ultimately unsuccessful. A question hangs in the air. Do you accept this, people of Portsmouth? Do you bow to the wishes and wants of men and women who care not that this is your home, but that they may enjoy their leisure without being interrupted by us lesser folk? Or do you act? Do you take back what is ours? The answer is clear, and the crowd agrees. Pull it all down. Barney himself, with a roused crowd cheering him on, tears the barrier down. People can once again access the beach and common. The situation is resolved, and the flames of the crowd are put to bed. It is this story that means people can continue to enjoy their access to the beach and common. Without Barney's physical determination or the crowd to support him, there may still be a barrier standing to this very day. The events that unfolded on that May day in 1874 set a precedent that this shall never happen again. Just a few months later, several visitors to Southsea Common stumble upon a new barrier. The pier company had done it again. In the earlier hours of the day, they had reinstated the wall. Access is once again denied. The council's finance committee are quick to criticise the company's actions, but fail to achieve any change. Barney Miller is back in the picture. Handbills circulate around the town and a meeting is called. The residents of Southsea and the rest of the island agree that to defend their rights, they must take action into their own hands. The time? 7 p.m, intentionally late, so that everyone could attend, even the town's working folk. The place, Southsea Common, this grassy arena, is once again occupied. This is public action. But to understand what happens next, we must understand the culture of this island community.
One of the things that I think is so important in the city and is such a strength is the people in Portsmouth will fight what they believe is right.
Portsmouth is a city with a radical past, a past of people who changed the world, who made a difference. Portsmouth Past is an LJD Histories podcast. If you'd like to change the world, to make a difference, please follow us on your listening platform to help support future episodes. You can also follow behind the scenes and discover extra content on the LJD Histories Instagram and Substack, linked in the description of this episode. Be radical. Be a part of Portsmouth's past. The crowd moves in. Barney brings his van to the common, filled with tools from his other job as an undertaker. Whilst he gathers the necessary paraphernalia, another councillor, also from Portsmouth's populist political stock, approaches the soapbox. His name, Manoa Jep. Sensing the energy of the crowd, he calls out asking that same question. Do we submit to the tyranny of man, or do we take matters into our own hands? Similar questions call for similar answers. The crowd repeats, pull it down. Emmanuel, the pier company's director, looked on in horror as the crowd grew bigger and Manoa denounced his decision to build the barrier. Emmanuel sent out a small group of company porters and labourers to stop the dismantling of the wall. This did little to aid his cause, as they were quickly pushed aside. In the wettening reflection of his sorrow-filled eyes, a flame had sparked. This was no longer a struggle to reinstate the status quo. It was a message, a demand. The crowd had started a fire. And in the distance, a band stationed just at the end of the pier plays on through the whole thing. Some things you truly can't make up. The goal has been achieved, and access has been restored for all Portsmouthians. But the discontent continues. By the next day, there is still a presence on the common. The crowd have moved on to their next target, surrounding fences, even ones not preventing broad access. Then, benches were torn from their fixtures and set alight. The common, a green and otherwise peaceful spot, is trampled and the surrounding area salted by the very people who wished to be allowed back into the fold. By the weekend, rumours begin to swell around the town. This battleground has been won. It is time to march on Southsea. At this very time, the Pier Company, undeterred by the previous few days, does something unthinkable. A third barrier is erected. The pier will not allow the people of Portsmouth to infect the pristine playground they had cultivated for the Victorian upper class. This time, they anticipate violence. Employees of the Pier Company are each issued truncheons, short, thick clubs to beat anyone who wished to reclaim their land. They are sending their own message: submit or be beaten. And it works. 200 residents of the local area make their way to the beach, not to fight against the pier, no, but to fight for them. Civil war on Portsea Island has begun. It is time for the Battle of Southsea to commence. "200 on the side of the pier, 3,000 or 4,000 on the side of the people. This is not an even fight. 100 policemen stand waiting for the violence to begin, and the mayor walks forward and reads from a small piece of paper. If any persons to the number of 12 or more unlawfully, riotously, and tumultuously assemble together to the disturbance of the public peace, in the King's name, disperse and peacefully depart. Those who remain unlawfully, riotously, and tumultuously shall be guilty of a felony. Our sovereign lord the King chargeth and commandeth all persons being assembled immediately to disperse themselves and peaceably depart to their habitations or to their lawful business upon the pains contained in the Act made in the first year of King George I for preventing tumults and riotous assemblies. God save the King." The Riot Act has been read. Anyone who remains to fight now is automatically considered a criminal. It does not matter the arguments of either side. In the eyes of the king and of the law of the land, they must stand down. But will they? A stone is thrown at the police, and the calm before the storm is broken. The police retaliate with disproportionate force, attacking even innocent onlookers. William Tarring, a local soda water manufacturer, happened to be passing by at the time. Curious about all the fuss, he approached a sergeant to inquire. As he opened his mouth, he was struck on the head and fell to the ground. Clutching the copper's belt, he claimed to see more stars in that moment than there ever were in the firmament. William's instinct is to leave the area, but he soon recognizes the injustice that had occurred and his rights as a citizen. He returns to the common. The sergeant had unknowingly enlisted a new supporter of the anti-peer cause. Soon after, however, he is attacked again by at least 3 policemen, and he is left with blood streaming down his own back. His story is just one of many during the battle. However, very few people are arrested, and just one man, Isaac Phillips, is prosecuted. It is perhaps not a coincidence that one magistrate on the court that oversaw Isaac's case was the director of the Pier Company, and the other a shareholder of it. We know of at least 4 prominent women who fought at the Battle of Southsea. An artist depicts them as active participants of the conflict, defending their ancient right of access because Southsea belonged to everyone who called it home, not just the men. However, whilst they are shown in visual representations of the battle, news reports omit them entirely, portraying an inaccurate picture that this was a political scuffle just for the boys. A consistent challenge with Victorian contemporary evidence. Eventually, the violence calms. On the morning of the 5th of August, the grass of the common is covered in both blood and morning dew. As the community wakes up this day, they are faced with a decision to make. Who won? The peer, the people, or the police? Reports begin to come in.
News of the battle was reported in papers all over the world. Rioting at the home of the Royal Navy.
The actions of the police are looked upon by the town with disgrace. The police are criticised. Additionally, it is found that the company workers should not have been given truncheons, and that it contributed to avoidable harm on the night. The peer is criticised. The people? The people come out on top. The radical councillor Barney Miller returns to the spotlight. He says proudly that the time had come when resistance was a virtue and forbearance a crime. A letter in the local press is full of praise for Barney and Manoa Jeps, the other councillor who spoke out against the barrier. And a ballad is sung that commemorates the Battle of Southsea. The people's blood began to boil when they saw this robbery of soil, the free right of the sons of toil. The Pier Company even agrees to a new road that allows public access to the seafront esplanade.
For me, the biggest thing that stands out is how the community came together to showcase that Southsea Common was the people's common.
The seafront is no longer theirs. It is once again ours.
There definitely is a real sense of ownership when it comes to seafront. People are proud of it, they're protective of it, they're connected to it. Also, when they don't see something they like, I think we're very quick to try and get it fixed or sorted. We've seen with the amazing work that's been done on Southsea Promenade as part of the sea defence scheme. People are proud of it. They're showing it off on social media. They're talking about it. They're using it. And I think it's just amazing to see. And it isn't just somewhere for people to visit. It's somewhere that they feel belongs to them and their wider community, as I do every time I'm down Southsea.
Come to Southsea today and look around. Dotted across the area are small monuments dedicated to the events that took place in this land over 150 years ago. Plaques set into stone, funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, as well as the City Council. Barney and Manoa would be proud. However, something is absent here. The Victorian Pier, the assembly rooms, and the public baths have all faded into memory. Now, visitors from home and afar are greeted by funfair, excitement, bright lights, and penny pushers. The wind that blows through Southsea Common are the sighs of relief echoing from the protesters who could not bear to be separated from being able to enjoy this part of the island. There is another monument to the Battle of Southsea here at the Common. It is very large. It is made up of many parts, and it changes very often. Every footprint in the grass, every picnic blanket laid out, every tightrope strung between the trees, these are all monuments to the people of Portsmouth, who come to this landscape, who enjoy this landscape, because once upon a time, a community said no. There is another artwork that immortalises the heated events of those August days. A pub mural now featured at the Portsmouth City Museum and Art Gallery. A wheel that depicts the crowded commotion that the Riot Act claimed to prevent. Take a closer look at the mural and you may recognise some familiar figures. Barney Miller, Manoa Jeps, Emmanuel, William Tarring, and countless other men, women, and animals that took part in the Battle of Southsea.
A mural depicting the event was painted by Henry Duggan as a gift for the Barley Mow pub. Henry was there during the battle, and the mural is an accurate depiction of the people involved. In the 1970s, John Field, a student at the local polytechnic, recognised the historical importance of the mural and worked with Whitbreads to save the painting and place it in the City Museum where it still is today.
A community remembered by the community. An event perhaps not as studied as the grand revolutions of France or America, but still important. Important to people then and to people now. The story and sides of those involved are clearly blurred. It is reported that not a single police officer went uninjured in the battle. Many of the Pier Company workers may have been sympathetic to the cause of the working people of Portsmouth, but sided with their bosses from fear of losing their livelihood. And the community was isolated from an integral part of where they called home, and disproportionately punished for standing up against it. But by learning from the Battle of Southsea, we keep their efforts alive. We ensure no blood spilt, nor truncheon bruise goes without reason.
The biggest lesson is the power of community. When people come together with a shared purpose, they can make a real impact. It also highlights how important it is to listen to local voices, especially the people that it impacts, and not just making a decision based on if it feels right. You need to consult people within that area, much like how we're doing with the City of Culture bid for Portsmouth to become City of Culture 2029.
Over 150 years later, locals still have a visceral reaction to any barriers being placed on the common that restrict their rights of access.
The Battle of Southsea set the precedent that the council would deal with the War Office over the future of the common, and not wealthy individuals.
A legacy laid and a decision made. Southsea is for the people. Thank you for listening to the very first episode of Portsmouth Past, an LJD Histories podcast. Please leave a like or follow on your listening platform to support future episodes. Updates and trailers will be shared on the LJD Histories Instagram and Substack. You can find links to these accounts in the description below. And another special thank you to Simon Berry and Jackson Batchelor from the Battle of Southsea Historical Society, as well as Portsmouth Ambassador Terence Carvalho. You can find their full responses on the LJD Histories Substack, Spotify, and YouTube. As we wrap up this story, go about your day and think about these key things. What are some things that you take for granted? How would you feel if they were taken from you? What would you do to defend them? Would you fight a battle? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
People are proud to come from Portsmouth. People care about where they live, they support local businesses, they show up for each other. There's a real sense of community and identity in our city. And that community spirit is something you see every single day. And I'm super proud to be a Portsmouth ambassador.